I came to join my parents, and I remember that day so well. We were fog-bound. The plane flew over Heathrow several times before we were able to land. I had never felt cold like on that day.
I am currently working as a biomedical scientist in the microbiology labs. I came in as a band 3, so I just graduated, but no experience. One of the things that motivated me to work in UHS was the opportunities that are available.
We had relatives come down a few months later to visit, and they said, "Oh, haven't seen Paulette yet." And I said, "I'm here," because I was usually very skinny, so I'd put a little bit of weight on. They couldn't believe that it was the same person, so, good air.
I came here on my ones, I came here by myself. I didn't know nobody. Kind of formed a community outside the UHS, within the UHS as well. I used to work in Waitrose before I got here. This is very different, but the skills I was able to take from there, the customer service skills, speaking to people, creating bonds with different people, I think that's something that I've been able to take into working in UHS.
Thought, oh, maybe I'll do nursing. Spent the first 6 weeks in what they called block at the time, which was sort of desk type learning, classroom learning. And then after that, we were let loose on the wards. We were so nervous, but excited. I was linked to a nurse. You also got supervised by more senior trainees, and you sort of shadow that person became your buddy. We were hands-on right from the beginning. I saw things that I didn't know about, like heart attacks. People have had strokes, diabetics. As a child, you don't think about those things, And so I worked with them and did everything. And then I went to the operating theatre for a day, and I thought, this is what I want to do. I absolutely loved it.
Being in a new place with new people, it was quite exciting to see how the biomedical scientist worked. Also interesting to see everything from the ground up. So I know the whole process now. Found out that all the urines we process in 1 year could make a swimming pool in the lab. It was great.
A few weeks in, we had a French lady that had come in, and I went to go and feed her lunch because she's had a stroke, and so therefore she can't do that. And she said, "Get away from me, you blackie." And I was quite taken aback. But I just carried on, smiled through it and said, you have to have your lunch, you have to eat something. Suddenly there was somebody standing over the two of us, and this was a doctor, and he said to this patient, "You will not speak to the staff like that, and if you do it again, you will go elsewhere for your treatment." He'd been walking past and he heard. He just stopped in his tracks and came back. I felt so warm, I felt supported, and I thought, thank you,
So we're hiring people from Africa, we're hiring people from Asia, we're hiring people from everywhere. A lot of people thought that because their knowledge was different, that it was wrong. There are people that dealt with different kinds of bacteria. It's not just one type. And understanding that different isn't wrong really does help in terms of how you engage with them. So what we did, they would give a lunchtime talk on something that they specialised in. So people would get to know who they are. But then you've expanded the knowledge of the laboratory as well.
Came across my first death. I'd gone to lunch and I came back and the curtains were drawn around this patient. And I said, "Oh, why are the curtains around Mrs. X?" And somebody said, "She's gone." I said, "No, she hasn't. Her slippers are still under her bed." And then she explained. She said, "You've never seen anybody?" And I said, "No, I haven't." There always seemed to be a party here because you've finished your training, you've passed your exams, you're a qualified nurse, and now the role changes.
Information was being shrunk. We'd speak to the managers about issues we were facing. The managers would try and speak to their managers. And by the time it got to the chief executives, a paragraph would turn to a sentence. I was able to have the pleasure of having one of the chief executives as my mentor. I used that to create a bridge between the executives and the lab. So then they talk to the staff and actually find out what was really going on. Hierarchy isn't meant to suppress, but it's meant to support. If you've got good ideas, open up and speak about it. You might expedite the patient's healthcare, which could save somebody's life.
When you went on nights, it was 8:30 till 8 o'clock the next morning. In a month, we would do 1 week, which was 4 nights, and that was a rotation. The first thing we did, we went in and we had handover. If it was 32 patients, we'd go through 32 patients. You'd be set up in teams. They would say, all right, Paulette, you and X, Y, and Z are working from beds 1 to 16. Get the patients washed, showered, fed, sat out.
A lot of things changed because of the pandemic. My lab was basically at the forefront of COVID testing. That's all I was doing. After the pandemic, we realized actually we need a 24-hour rota system. So sometimes I work nights. I work maximum 3 nights in a row, minimum 2 nights in a row. I think it's a 16-week rota that they've created for us so that you kind of can predict when your night shifts are coming. I work early, starting work at 7 a.m., finishing at 3:30 p.m. I then work late shifts where I'll start at 12:30 and finish at 9. I can get stuff done before work or after work. So it's been pretty flexible. I'm enjoying it.
If you had long hair, it was put up. We wore aprons and the hats that were so starched, they stood up by themselves. And you had pockets here with your little fob watch and your pens and pencils and scissors, whatever you needed, you know? And we also had a cape that we wore. It was black on the outside, it was red. And I loved my cape. And they were long down to the ground. And it was just very military, but it was good because we all looked the same. Part of the uniform was skin-coloured tights. I got told off. I wore black tights. They were too sexy. And I said, but I am not the colour of the other tights. American tan, that was the colour of choice for us. They were like a sort of cardboard box colour, you know? And I think I'm a little bit darker than that, so I didn't wear them. We had different coloured belts. White belt was, you know, you were very junior. Yellow was your middle in second year. A red belt meant you were senior, so they could ask you anything. I found it quite daunting. I thought, oh, they're going to start asking me to do this. I kept wearing my trainee belt. The ward sister said, we know you've passed your exams, so stop wearing that belt.
Don't wear a uniform specifically, but there is a dress code. There are certain things that you shouldn't wear. Open-toe shoes in the lab. You want to have your body covered because you don't know what's going to spill. We have our own PPE within the laboratory that we use.
They did lunch, then afternoon tea, which was a cup of tea with some biscuits or a piece of cake, and then supper. Food used to be cooked on site. Nurses dished up the food and took it to the patients. And once you'd finished dishing out, you'd go back and then try and help the ones that needed help with being fed, etc. You know, now they get a tray and everything's on the tray.
I make my own lunch and I'll bring it in, or I'll go to Subway's or M&S. I used to like their pancakes and bacon with syrup, but they don't do it anymore, which was really sad for me because I really enjoyed my pancakes in the morning. But, you know, what can you do?
It was quite formal. Oh, there's Mrs. Smith, there's Mr. Smith. You're talking to them. We always spoke to them. That was one of the things we were always told. Because you're doing that, you learn a lot more. And you just get to know them. And then you walk in and that patient's face lights up because they think, oh, you know, my nurse is here. Nurses in those days were respected and looked up to highly. You get on the bus and somebody would get off their seat and let you sit down because you were a nurse. And I think, wow, you know, it's lovely, it's wonderful.
Language in the lab has definitely changed, definitely more sensitive to people's feelings and how our language can make them feel. If people say things behind other people, how does that affect people? One of my roles at work is freedom to speak up. If somebody comes to me with an issue, I speak up about it. There's a saying that says, let your words be seasoned with salt, let it be seasoned with grace. Think about how your words are going to make people feel. Don't just say things because you think it's funny. It might actually not be funny. You don't know what somebody's been through. You don't know what's happened to somebody in their past. You don't know what might trigger somebody. But just being more mindful, thinking of others before yourself, really.
When I had my first child, I had a cesarean section. I found it very disturbing because of all the monitoring and when the nurses would come and do my obs. And when I went back to work, I shared that with my colleagues and we used that as a way of improving the care to the patients.
Every year we have what we call the global Christmas meal. Everybody brings food from around the world, just encouraging people to be who they are, not feeling under pressure to be something else or to have to try and behave a different way or talk a different way. Just be yourself. The Windrush Generation helped in building the NHS. They came to work because we had a shortage. I think it's something that we've continuously seen within history. Your GP might be from an Asian background, they might be from a black background, they're from everywhere nowadays. And I think that's one thing that this country is built on, the fact that people have chosen to come from where they are, to build up their skills here, to find opportunity here for a better life. Doctors, nurses, radiologists, a lot of them came, especially during COVID. I think we realised how much potential is in other continents as well. There are people that are absolutely amazing and have so much to bring to the NHS. The Windrush propagated a movement of there's more opportunity. You don't have to stay in one place. Seeing doctors that look like you is definitely an encouragement that I can do this too, that I'm not alone. People don't realise how much we are missing in the labs. I think there wasn't as much representation as there should have been. I'd like to appeal to anybody that wants to be biomedical scientists. Go ahead.
Nursing is open to anybody. You don't have to just be a registered nurse. There's so much more you can do. We have nurse consultants now, also nurses who can become surgical assistants. Choose the path you want to go, research what you want to do, and just aim for the skies.
During my A-levels, I was told to go and study health and beauty because she didn't think I was smart enough to do science. You can't afford to reject your dreams because of somebody's opinion. Unless you allow their opinion to overwhelm you, you create your path, you make your decisions. Nobody can stop you from reaching your destiny.
I always say my school days were good, but I also think my experiences in the NHS, they were very good because not only have I worked and qualified and got my roles as whatever grades I wanted to in the NHS, I've been a patient in the NHS, so I've been very well cared for.
Being part of the NHS has been very enlightening. It's opened my eyes to see how much care people need, both patients and the people working there. I've seen how people can support each other. I've had so many doors open to me. It's unbelievable.
I've been there at the NHS at the worst, and I've been there at its best. So I do feel very proud of that. And I remembered when I left, somebody wrote in my leaving book that when he came into and saw it was me, he was at ease because he knew everything was going to be all right.
Being a second generation NHS worker, the way I've been treated is completely different to the way my mum was treated. She was working in the office and there were 3 or 4 of them and they were all black. So somebody came in and said, "This is the black office, I'm guessing." In that moment, she felt empowered to speak up and say, actually, no, you can't talk like that. Seeing how my mum has risen through the ranks, go through all the obstacles that she went through and still attain excellence, it shows that it is achievable. As long as you keep that dream alive within yourself and you consistently work through that goal, I will continue to see good things happen.